Hey LiteWeights, and thank you for tuning into my hands-on preview trailer reaction for the final preview of Gotham Knights. I am excited for this game. I've done a couple other one other reaction video to this game. It's coming out this month, which is really exciting, but I am excited to see this final hands-on preview, to see a little bit more of the gameplay. I will be trying to play this game on the channel at some point, but I will not be able to play it right on release, I don't think, because I have so many other games going on right now. But I will try to play it soon if that is something that you guys are interested in. Regardless, I will be playing this, if not on the channel, on my own time, because I am very excited for this. I had a ton of fun with the Arkham games, and the combat style and the feel so far looks like it's kind of within the same vein as the combat kind of feel and mechanics of those Arkham games as well. So I'm definitely excited for that. I'm excited to be back in the DC universe, just because I loved my time there. I loved playing those games, and I'm ready to dive back in. I know that this is not the same, like, universe lore world as those games, as those Arkham games, but regardless, I am excited to be back in the thick of it with DC. And I'll be curious to see what you guys think of this trailer, and I'm curious to see what they show us. So if you are new here or you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that bell button when you do, so that you know when I post future videos. And if you're new here and you want to check it out, feel free to check out my Arkham series. I played through all of those Batman games, did them slightly out of order, but you can go check that in the playlists on my channel. All right, you guys, here we go.
Over the course of our month-long IGN First coverage, we saw a lot about the world and lore of Gotham Knights, the crafting and gear mechanics, the suits and customization options, but there's been one green Riddler-esque question mark surrounding the whole game up to this point. How does it play? Well, I played about 3 hours of it at a recent hands-on event, and the answer is, well, it's complicated. What's for certain, at least, is that Gotham Knights is a wildly ambitious effort that feels appropriately massive and dense, to the point where even a heavily guided 3-hour demo felt like just a scratch on the surface.
Now I'm nervous!
My demo was broken up into 4 chunks. I played the tutorial that involved following a lead on Batman's last case, then jumped into a new save to play the first chapter of Harley Quinn's multi-part villain arc, then continued with several open world challenges related to Harley's story, and to put a cap on the event, I jumped into a late game save that let me and the internet's own Destin Legary face off against Harley in the finale of her arc. And that leads to one of the main reasons why my takeaways from this event are complicated. Gotham Knights is a game that is centered around building up your character, setting and understanding your own skills and gear, and developing your own playstyle. Something that I just didn't really get to do, since I was jumping around to different save files and trying out the different characters. Without that feeling of building up my own character and progressing through their skill tree, combat felt like it was missing a key ingredient. On a very basic level, Gotham Knights combat is built on the foundation of the Batman Arkham games. But once you get past the shallow waters, things go in very different directions. Here's where things will be familiar. You press the direction and the attack button, and your character gracefully spins, leaps, or slides towards the closest enemy for a quick strike that initiates a combo. Enemies will also telegraph their own attack with an icon that appears over them, giving you plenty of time to dodge out of the way to avoid damage. It's all super smooth, there are a ton of slick animations, and you're even rewarded for timing your button presses as opposed to just button mashing, just like in the Arkham games. And that's it. That's where the comparisons end, because everything else feels very different. Gotham Knights is much more abilities focused, with a meter at the bottom right that governs your ability to use your momentum skills. As you'd imagine, you gain meter by dealing damage and using your dodge to avoid attacks with good timing. Once you fill a bar, you can use one of your 8 equipable momentum skills for a variety of different uses. Red Hood has a close-range throw that deals a ton of damage to a single target. Robin has a holographic distraction that he can throw down to take some heat off of him and the team. Batgirl can toss out a Batarang barrage to deal a bunch of piercing damage right in front of her. And Nightwing has a cool acrobatic leap attack that lets him get the jump on an enemy from far away. There were also moments where certain momentum abilities were the key to defeating specific enemy types that were armed with powerful armored attacks. Piercing abilities beat armored attacks, for instance, so anytime I saw an enemy with a red attack warning, I had to counter with my own piercing attack, whether that was Batgirl's Batarang Barrage or Robin's Staff Spin attack.
So that's kind of similar to the Arkham
and I'm
games.
very much looking forward to the progression of getting to unlock new momentum abilities, purchase skills that synergize with them, find and craft new pieces of gear, add mods that further enhance certain effects, and find a preferred playstyle for each of my characters when the game actually comes out. My concern is how well that progression, those momentum abilities, the gear, and the deep well of customization options are going to be able to carry the whole experience, because, on a fundamental level, I found Gotham Knights combat to be very flashy, but also kind of bland. Fights quickly started to feel very routine, with very similar enemies in every encounter, to the point where I felt like I had to mix up my tactics, not because I was being forced to, but just to try to make things a little more interesting. My favorite character ended up being Red Hood because he excelled at a hybrid style of both range and melee, which felt quite different from what everyone else was able to do. Plus, he had some neat tricks, like being able to grab an enemy, place a bomb on them, and then kick them away so you can explode the bomb.
That was cool though.
The other characters have their fun surprises too. They all generally control the same, which makes jumping between them very easy, but they each have their own combat/stealth focuses and playstyles that are defined by what you put points into on their skill tree. Batgirl can be built to be a single target DPS machine, or a nearly uninterruptible tank that can self-revive, or a stealthy hacker that can make herself invisible to security cameras. Nightwing can build himself to enhance his jumping abilities and deal massive critical hit damage. He can become a slippery acrobat that gets extra dodges and faster momentum meter gain, or he can be built more like a team leader designed for co-op play.
So
Red
it
Hood
sounds
can lean
like
more heavily into his range attacks by giving them higher crit chances and more damage. He can become more of a close range bruiser that aims to get in and grab his opponents, or he can increase the damage he deals towards various different factions of enemies. And finally, Robin can build himself to have a game plan centered around his decoy. He can become a true Batman successor by investing in stealth skills, including Arkham game mainstays like Vantage takedowns, or he can focus on gadgetry and elemental damage. Just by glancing at the skill tree, it's easy to see that there's a lot to get excited about for each character every time you gain skill points. And that's where I'm torn on Gotham Knights. When I look at the skill trees, the locked momentum abilities, the wide variety of suits that I can unlock, and I think about going through it all with a buddy and taking on more challenging missions, I can't help but get excited at the idea of what Gotham Knights could be. But in my playtime with this demo, things were very far off from that idealized version. Beyond combat, Gotham Knights is very impressive. The city of Gotham is absolutely gorgeous. The many different modes of traversal are all fun in their own way, whether that's by motorcycle, Batgirl's glide, Nightwing's glider, Red Hood's mystical air hops, or Robin's short-range teleportation. The Belfry seems like an awesome headquarters full of optional conversations that deepen the relationships between the four heroes. And you can even play Spy Hunter. And the cooperative play feels extremely well implemented. Since the demo was so focused on the Harley Quinn subplot, I didn't get much of a feel for the overall story of Gotham Knights and how the Court of Owls fits into everything, but I'm very into what I've seen of the characters so far. There are great dynamics between each of them, with the standout for me being between Red Hood and Nightwing. Nightwing's trying his best to step into the role of a leader, while Red Hood finds himself struggling between his thirst for violence and his desire to honor the legacy of Batman. There's a great scene in the Belfry where Nightwing inadvertently touches a nerve by bringing up a story that sets Jason off, and you really get to see the pain and anger that Red Hood is struggling to keep under the surface.
I don't know what's worse. Having a chunk of my life taken away from me, or coming back to everyone thinking I'm gonna snap.
I'm sorry, Jason. We shouldn't have... I shouldn't have treated you like an outsider.
It's very Guardians of the Galaxy-esque, and if Gotham Knights can pack the whole game with moments like this, then its characters will almost certainly become a highlight of the whole experience. Also, just so you know, this whole fight in the prison, it's set to a punk rock version of Livin' La Vida Loca. So,
That's awesome.
Gotham Knights is not an easy game to demo, and while I walked away from my hands-on time less than impressed with many aspects of combat, I still found myself interested in playing more. We'll see how it all comes together when Gotham Knights releases on PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC on October 21st. For more on Gotham Knights, don't miss the first 16 minutes of gameplay, as well as Harley Quinn's boss fight gameplay. And for everything else in the Batman universe, keep it here on IGN.
All right, so I'm still very excited after watching that. I think all of his fears are definitely valid, and I could totally see where he's coming from with the potential to feel stale. He felt like it was a little repetitive, but I also feel like with that kind of gameplay, that's just kind of what you're in for, if that makes sense. Like with the Batman games, there were some really cool boss fights and there were some really cool side things that you can do, and just like random encounters and random things that you can do, like with the Riddler, and in the most recent, I'm sorry, I'm like, my head cold is getting to me. I'm having trouble thinking of what it's called, but the different like mini bosses, different villains that you could run into, definitely switched up the pacing a bit. But for the most part, like when you were in those combat moments, they were very samey. And I don't mean to say that in a bad way. I loved all of those games and I had a great time with all of those games. But I mean, there really wasn't much diversity in the combat when you were not fighting a villain or doing a main like encounter type of thing. When you were just fighting like the smaller guys, or you were in the streets, or you were trying to get to the main boss, all of those combat moments were pretty much samey. Big groups of enemies attacking you. You have to use your different abilities depending on the type of attack they have. And you could change it up depending on what skills you unlocked. But for the most part, it was very much like I had a routine, I had a rhythm, and I had the skills that I used regularly and the things that I didn't. But it was very samey in that way. So that's not surprising to me that he said the combat felt a little bit samey, and I don't think that's a bad thing. In my opinion, I don't think that's a bad thing. If they have enough other moments to break that up. So I guess we'll have to wait and see if they do. My biggest takeaway, though, is it really feels like they want you to play this game co-op. You have the option to play it single player, but it feels very much like a co-op game, or like they intended it to be a mostly co-op game. And that makes me feel like I'm not going to play it on the channel, but I'll have a great time playing it on my own time, maybe with Mr. Light or with some friends. So I'm thinking this is going to be a more me enjoying it on my own type of game because of that. And I'm also, the only thing I am a little bit worried about is he said that there were some great story beats between the between different characters and their personalities and kind of their story arcs changing and growing. But I get worried that there's not going to be enough of that to make it an entertaining playthrough for you guys to watch. I don't necessarily need that if I'm just going to be playing it on my own. I think just the combat and running into the different villains and playing as the different characters in the Court of Owls will be very entertaining in its own right. But if there isn't enough of a like story beat underneath it, it's not going to necessarily make a super entertaining playthrough for the type of channel that I have. So that this hands-on preview made me more so think that this is going to be a good game for me to play on my own time as kind of like a relaxing, not doing work game, which I need those. So I am still excited for this, but definitely feel like I want to see more. And I'll be curious to watch other preview reactions to see if they have the same thoughts. Listen to some of my podcasts that I like to listen to see their thoughts on their hands-on previews, to see if they all kind of agree. He definitely seemed hopeful for this, but he had more criticisms than I would have wanted to see in order to be super hopeful, if that makes sense. And I know a lot of people in games journalism, I think they can be more critical than I am as a lay person who doesn't know the ins and outs of games. I tend to be much more easy to please in terms of games and with movies and TV shows than people who are on the journalistic side of things. So I always try to kind of take what they say with as a grain of sand, because typically I like something more than somebody else does. That's just my personality. But with the amount of concerns he had, it could definitely just be because of how they broke up the preview. They didn't just give like a giant chunk in the beginning. They wanted him to see different sections of the game. So that obviously could detract and take away from it. But still makes me a little bit nervous that there were so many concerns on his end. So overall, still very excited. Definitely thinking it's going to be a non-channel game for me. But I'm looking forward to being back in the DC universe, learning about these characters, learning about these villains, and getting back with this combat, because I had fun with those Arkham games, and I still think that the combat in this game is going to be fun as well. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Are you still hyped for this game? The more you see, are you less hyped for this game? Overall impressions on his preview that we just got from IGN. All that good stuff. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that bell button when you do, so that you know when I post future reaction videos, and have an amazing day.